In this episode, I'm going to go over the starting zone for the Night Elves. So if you skipped reading the quests while leveling, this will sum up everything that you missed. So let's jump right in and find out what happened in World of Warcraft. For those of you joining for the first time, glad to have you here. This channel is dedicated to summarizing the quest lore that so many skipped over while leveling their characters in World of Warcraft. Now, a lot of people have reached out and asked if I could cover some of the more popular quest chains, and I know that we're going to get to those in the future. But for now, I'm trying to get all of the starting zones completed because of one thing: Shadowlands. Things are going to be changing when Shadowlands comes out, so you never know what might happen, so might as well document everything right now. So I hear you about wanting to summarize more of the popular quest chains, but for now, let's knock out these starting areas first. Okay, Night Elves. You start off in an area called Shadowglen, high above in the tree called Teldrassil, and you begin your journey speaking to Thelaine? Let's just go with Thelaine. Okay, forgive me for butchering these names. Anyways, he says that his job is to train young night elves, like yourself, to ensure that the balance of nature is maintained. He mentions that the spring rains were heavy this year, and because of that, some of the forest beasts flourished while others suffered. Unfortunately, the night saber numbers grew too large, and because of this, it could devastate the other populations. He wants you to go out and kill 6 young night sabers to thin them out a bit. So you head out, and you kill the 6 young night sabers. Then you head back to Thelaine to report. He says that you know what you're doing, and that maybe you could help out with something a bit more important. Back in the day, there was a corruption in Teldrassil, and it was supposedly wiped away. But Thelaine says that something lingers, especially with the Grelkin. And he wants you to deal with the Grelkin that have gathered out in the west. And while you're there, he wants you to look for some fell moss, which will help Thelaine determine where the corruption is coming from. Before you leave, you run into Melithar Staghelm, who tells you that the Grells in the area are stealing from the food stores again. He wants you to lend a hand by bringing back a few of his stolen bags that the Grells stole from him. So now you head out and kill Grells until they drop 6 of the fell moss. You also pick up 5 of the stolen bags. Then you head back to report. Thelaine says that your services to the creatures of Shadowglen are worthy of a reward, and hands you a pair of tracking boots for your efforts. He now says that you've confirmed his fears, in that the Grelkin are still tainted by the fell moss. And despite Teldrassil's blessing, something sinister still remains in the central tree of Aldrassil. Now he also hopes that the Gnarlpine tribe of Furbolgs in the local area are free of corruption, and says that he'll look further into it. Upon speaking with Melithar, he says that there are many night elves in need of the bags that you returned, and that he'd be happy to give you one. So he hands you one of Melithar's supply bags for returning them from the Nells out in the west. After you're done speaking with Melithar, Thelaine calls you back over, and asks if you'd be willing to help in the pursuing of the corruption here in Shadowglen. Dentaria Silverglade, who's a priestess of the moon, has offered to help, and that you can find her between the 2 pools to the north of here in the center of Shadowglen. So you run to the north and meet up with Dentaria, and upon arriving you find that she's tending to another night elf lying on the ground. She says that his name is Ivaren and that he's fallen to poison due to the nearby webwood spiders. Now, she can keep his state from deteriorating, but she needs ingredients to prepare an antidote. Dentaria says that all around the pond are moon petal lilies. These flowers have great healing properties, and she could use these to restore Ivaren to better health. She now wants you to go out and collect 7 of them. So you head out, and you pick 7 of the moon petals, and then you return to Dentaria. She thanks you for bringing her the flowers, and with that she rewards you with a bark plate vest for your gathering work. After making the antidote for Ivaren, she says that he's now cured, but it's gonna take some time for him to recover. Dentaria now asks for you to do something a bit more dangerous. She says that the mysterious woodland protector Tarandrella, who's a dryad, has returned to Shadowglen. Now this dryad's presence hasn't been felt in the forest since before the blessing of Teldrassil, and Dentaria wants you to seek out Tarandrella in the Shadowthread cave to the north. So you head out to the cave, and as you arrive at the entrance, Tarandrella shows up, and tells you that it was wise of Dentaria to send you. She never wanted to return to Teldrassil for corruption reasons, but the spiders suffer more deeply from the corruption than any other wildlife in the area. Needless to say, their numbers have to be thinned. But more importantly, Teldrassil says that we need to find the source of the corruption. She wants you to kill 12 webwood spiders. So you head into the cave and kill the spiders that need to be killed. After killing 12 of them, Teldrassil says that this corruption is bred within the spiders themselves, and that if these spiders are born with corruption in their veins, then their broodmother must be the root of it all. Now you're tasked with seeking out and killing Gilithus? I can't get the name right. Githias, the Vile. Githias. Alright, we're gonna go with Githias. That's a weird name. So, you kill the broodmother and find a totem next to her location. Teldrassil says that this totem that you picked up was part of the source of the corruption, and that this totem belongs to the Furbolgs, also known as the Gnarlpine. Teldrassil says that she'll pursue the trail with the totem and track down the corruption to its source. For now though, she says that if you run into someone named Athridus Bearmantle in Dolinar, then he can tell you on what you need to do to further help the forest. But for now, you need to report back to Dentaria. So you're instantly teleported back and walk up to Dentaria to report. She's glad to see that you've returned and says that you've managed to deal with a good amount of the corruption in Shadowglen, but you still got some training to do. She says that there's a ritual to complete for your training, and it consists of learning about recent history. She wants you to go to the Moonwell to the northeast and retrieve a vial of water, and while you're there, you will witness a glimpse of magic and learn of the past. After that's done, she wants you to return to her with the sample of water. So you head out to the Moonwell, and upon arriving there, you're greeted by the Shade of Kaldori, who then tells you a bunch of things, like how a lot has changed since the Battle of Mount Hyjal, how Nordrassil lies in shadows because its power was used to defeat Archimonde and drive back the Burning Legion, also how the Betrayer, or Illidan, was freed from his prison, and also about Shandor Stormrage disappearing into the Emerald Dream. Lots of lore stuff that may or may not be covered by quests. After you pick up the water, you return to Dentaria, who says that the recent history is full of strife and violence, and that there's a lot to come to terms with. Dentaria says that there's one more task to do before you leave Shadowglen. She wants you to report to Tanarin Stormgrip, located at the central tree of Aldrassil. Once there, you'll be able to complete your training. Dentaria says that it was a pleasure to meet you, and that you will do great things in this world. So now you head out to Aldrassil and run to the top to meet up with Tanarin Stormgrip. He tells you that the Moonwells hold the waters from the Well of Eternity, which is an ancient source of magic that has brought a lot of horror into this world. The Druids take advantage of its properties, while the returning Highborn look to the wells longingly for its power. He rewards you with the Woodland Shield for having learned the recent history of the Night Elves, and for continuing your journey outside of Shadowglen. Now, Tanarin says he could talk more about the Moonwells, but he must send you along, and that Carithra's Moonrage will be expecting you in Dolinar. He pours a portion of the water that you brought back from the Moonwell into a separate vial, and wants you to deliver it to Carithras. So now you head out to the Moonwell in Dolinar, and as you leave Shadowglen, you run into a night elf named Porthanius, who wants you to deliver a package of herbs to innkeeper Keldamir at the Dolinar Inn, because he says he still has business to do in Shadowglen and can't leave right now. So you take the herbs, and head out of Shadowglen to seek Carithras, and continue to fight against the corruption in Teldrassil. I am so sorry for messing those names up. I'm sure there's some Night Elf enthusiast that could correct me, and by all means go for it. But it seems like Teldrassil is a pretty nasty place, and this is just the beginning. So if this is the kind of content that you like to listen to, then consider subscribing to the channel and make sure you hit that bell icon so you're notified when the next episode drops. Also make sure to hit that like button to spark that YouTube algorithm. It helps a ton. And thank you to the Patreon subscribers for all of your help. Your contributions mean a lot and help keep this channel running. And with that, we'll see you next week when we take a deeper look into the Night Elves and find out what happens next in the Tales of Azeroth.